Alright, so here we are, Flying Colors. This is the first scenario from the original Flying Colors. After that, this one starts out in 1756. After that, the scenarios in Flying Colors jump into the 1780s, the Revolutionary era. Later Revolutionary era. The Ship of the Line expansion goes into an earlier Revolutionary era. I have to be careful. I thought these were all before the next ones of this set. But that's not the case. There is some interweaving. Okay. This is the Battle of Minorca. Bing is trying to relieve Minorca from a siege. It's about an equal fleet. The Brits have a little bit more numbers, and they're going to have the wind gauge. But Bing ends up not really pushing the fight, and he gets a court-martial out of it. And we need a wind marker, which will be coming this way, I guess. That can't be. Where's this? That can't be. It's got to be coming this way. That's what they're trying. I have a really hard time with anything visually oriented. My grasp of space and perspective is just about nil. And this is going to last a maximum of 10 turns, so we need to use the turn record track up here. And this will be turn 1. And the British have an audacity of 1. The French have a 0. Whatever that ends up affecting. Remember, audacity has effects on a number of different factors. I should keep this kicking around. Alright, I guess we're about ready to start. Let's look at the sequence of play. And it's funny, when I did my rules introduction, I didn't really bother the sequence of play. It's fairly similar to fighting sail. You check the wind adjustment every 5th turn. You set up your commands. You determine initiative, and that's something important I left out, I think. That's just going to be your fleet admiral's command rating added to a die roll. Whoever gets the higher roll wins it. If there's a tie, I may have stated this. That was a huge video. There's going to be a tiebreaker in terms of the audacity. So essentially, we each roll a die. I have to figure out who the commanding admirals are, though. Well, Bing is going to be my admiral here, and he has a 2. And Glastonniere is my admiral here, also with a 2. So we're going to roll, and we're essentially at even. The high roll goes to the English, so they get the initiative. What does that give them? That gives them the right to choose who goes first, but command activation is alternating, so I don't know how many major factors there are with initiative here. Damned if I remember. Okay, well, he has initiative, and I have no idea what that means. I know that he gets to choose the first choice of who goes first. He gets to choose who goes first and picks a command. But that's it. Okay. So the next thing, do we have a sequence of play here? Of course not. It's not that big a deal. It's something that you get. We go to the activation cycle, where we're going to be alternating and doing the following. Select a command of a single or out of command Select a command or a single out-of-command ship. Well, we haven't declared our commands yet. We should have done that already. Oops. This is pretty easy at this stage in the game. Let's see what we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The only way that I can get this guy in command, this ship here, if I wish him to be, it's not really that big a deal, is if I use my radius on him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that would make this all one command because it's within his radius. I'm going to do that. I'll put a command split there. And that means I'll declare this as a single formation as well. That I can do because of, I don't remember their word for it. And there's no way I can find it in this rulebook. That's a formation command. This is a group command. On the French side, and these are kind of can be done simultaneously. I'm not sure where I want my formations. Let me put some thought here because I've got really any breaks I like here. I kind of like the idea of crossing the British T, but then I'm facing directly into the wind. So I'm going to let them take the aggressive action, which means I don't necessarily want to make this a tiny little formation, which I was considering. So instead I'm going to put my brakes here and here. That's really just a matter of, it probably doesn't make any difference at this point in the game. Okie dokie. Alright, so the Brits have the initiative. What do they want to do? Do they want to move first? Or do they want to let the French move first? Well, I think they want to move first because they want to start gaining that ability to cross the T. Now, obviously, this isn't like a ship versus ship combat where you want to cross, you're not going to be able to cross the T on every enemy ship. But I'm not going to just wheel and sail into the enemy. That usually is kind of a bloody and painful process. So I'm going to just move forward. And what do I got here? I think I'm reaching, but I'm not sure. It looks like it's hitting me kind of from the rear, so it's a reaching. That means I'm going to have 5 movement points. Now, actual movement. Reaching to running or reaching to beating are the only ones that cost me anything. And I'm just using plain sail here. I don't want to deal with full sail. That adds a lot of movement. It's great, but it penalizes you in more ways in this than it does in fighting sail. In fighting sail, it might be worth it, although the advantages are low. And in this, it affects your fire as well, as it should. Okay, so let's get... Oh, this must be normal weather. Let's get moving. 1, 2, and now I want to turn, and I think it's from reaching to running. 3, it's your ass that swivels. Oh, let's not do that. 3, 4, 5. Alright, that guy's moved. I'm not going to shoot, but we can take a quick look at what the firing modifiers would be at this range. So, if I shot at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hexes here, our rates are the same. We both have a 4 for rates, but that doesn't matter in this game. It's just, that's going to be my rate. And I said 7 hexes. That gives me a 2. I might be getting a partial broadside here. Wow. This guy's out of my range, actually. I could shoot this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would be 8 hexes instead of 7. That would give me a base of 1. None of these really affect me, except maybe partial broadside. It looks like I don't have that. None of these affect me except my audacity, which gives me a +1 to the firepower modifier. So I'd be at a 2. I'd have the initial broadside of +2. That would give me a 4. And then I'd look on here, and this is basically the kind of fire I can do. But I'm holding off because of that initial broadside. Now, one thing I didn't show is there's this status sheet here where you can write all the names down, what hits have been done, and whether or not you fired that initial broadside. I can keep track of the initial broadsides on paper, though, as well, just as I did in fighting sail. It's a fairly minor factor here. And all the other information is actually already tracked with the counters. I find that a little easier than doing a lot of lookups. But if the counters start getting too crowded, I may start tracking things on paper. I probably won't use their handy-dandy sheet because, well, I hate using up anything that's a limited resource, so I'll make up my own. Okay, let's keep moving. The rest of these are at 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could side slip. 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't particularly want to, but I'll do some here to show you how. Okay, so side slip gives me that for 2, 3, 4, 5, because I'm reaching. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4. Basically, it's a 1 movement point per hex anyway. All right. And there we go. Our turn hasn't really gained us much, and I think the French are going to be tempted to launch an attack across there. Now, it is the French turn. Now, I could choose to move, say, this French squadron and try to break up the English maneuvering there, but I'm not terribly excited by that. Now, the French are also are also reaching. But they can only side slip this way. I can't side slip closer to the Brits. And that's going to make things a little bit more tricky. So 1, 2, 3, because reaching to beating is expensive. 4, 5. Well, 4, 5, and now I'm going to turn again. This is a free turn, but I've closed some of the distance here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll do the same here. Did I want to fire here? Does anybody want to fire? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 hexes with a 4 gun. You know, I like holding fire, so I'm going to do it for this one. That's probably very ahistorical in this battle, but I feel like I've got the edge right now with the Brits turning this way, but maybe I don't. Alright, let's test out the fire combat system. I'm not on the rake line, though. You have to get it exactly lined up to get the rake line fire. Sure. Okay. The Orphy is going to shoot at the Defiance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is the victory conditions in this scenario? That's a good question. Or what are they? Looks like they're just standard victory conditions, whatever that means. which means capturing and killing things is of importance, and the Brits can't run off the map. Okay. The Orphy will... Jeez. It's always so hard for me to choose to fire. 5 hexes away at a 4. That gives me a 4. I'm not going to get any of these bonuses here. But I get +2 to my total firepower by the initial broadsides. Now, cumulative carronade, I believe, is if you keep firing when you have carronades. So I think I'm at a 6 or something. I can't remember. 4 to 5, 4 + 2 is 6. And now I roll here. Now, what am I doing? Rigging or hull fire? Hard decision, but I want to do rigging fire because I want to interfere with his movement ability. I get a net of 4. Let's see what we have here. French are firing at rigging, so that's +1. That brings me to 5. I'm firing into the wind, +1. That brings me to a 6. Got all the advantages for rigging fire here. If firing outside the broadside arc and not within own rake line. I got no idea what that's supposed to mean. So I'm going to ignore that. That sounds like swivel guns or something. Okay, so I think my total is a 6. And I was on the 6 table. I get a rigging hit. Which I mark with one of these. And an asterisk, which means fire. But I don't know if that's an automatic fire because I can't remember. And eventually I will remember these things. But you have to play this game, you know, a few times, like any other game. Or at least you have to play for a while to get used to what all the effects are. 3.7.11. Nicely referenced, at least. Unfortunately, it's not. That's not the correct reference. That's something I've noticed, is that there are errors all throughout this. And you know what's really a shame? This is not the first edition. In fact, this is not even the edition that came with this game. This is the later Ship of the Line revision to it. This thing's been through several versions. Now, maybe there's a living rules that corrects these. I know there is a living rules, but it does seem rather edited in terms, or unsuccessfully tested as a rule set. So I don't know where the fire rules are. And I'll just spend my time here flipping through so you can get an idea of how much fun this game is to learn. Yeah. There we go. And it is actually under 3.7.11. It's just 3.7.11 is a whole page of information. Unlike the old SPI rules, GMT likes to put, you know, hey, that's a reference, but, you know, it could be a couple chapters there. I don't know. Not what I was expecting. All right, roll a die. If it's less than or equal to the hull, the number of hull and or rigging hits, the ship has caught fire. Okay, so I need a 1 to catch fire. That does not happen. A 9, in fact, automatically fails to catch fire. Now I can come a little closer. Now, the Orphy has fired, and this is the problem, but you have to do this no matter what, whether you mark it on paper or otherwise. You have to mark your fire like this. Unlike fighting sail, where you get to mark your fire just by flipping your counter. At least this one, though, allows you to fire from both sides. That kind of works well, but you have some kind of, you know, cost to every action you take in this game, essentially. Okay, let's go again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, of course, the Brits could be doing defensive fire, but they're choosing not to. They want to close. Uh-oh, that's my alarm. An alarm I had set 10 minutes too early, it turns out. I was thinking, geez, I'm going to have to pause here in the middle because I'm not even going to be able to do this whole line. Well, I can do this line, but because I always set a few minutes additional just so that I can go through the login procedures. Okay, so I've moved here. Do I want to fire again? And the answer to that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd like to hit up the rigging on more than one ship, but I haven't even done a movement hit on this one. So I'm going to fire again from the port here. And this should be essentially the same shot as I made before. Now, firing decisions take a lot of time at this point. And they actually take a lot of time throughout the game. There's a lot of room in this game with maneuvering and firing for an analysis paralysis type situation where you're trying to weigh all the different options because you can calculate out wherever you can end up in a way that you can't with a plotted movement game. So my feeling is this game actually takes longer than a Wooden Ships and Iron Men. I haven't played Wooden Ships and Iron Men, I don't believe, but I have played other plotted naval movement games, Trireme and Ironclads, and those go more quickly than this does. And I've also played Wings and Richthofen's War, and Richthofen's War takes a lot more thinking to make your turn than Wings does. Wings has plotted movement. It's a more complex game, but okay. So I'm on that 6 table again doing rigging fire. And I only roll a 0, but I'm at +2. I actually get a hull hit off the rigging fire. That kind of stuff can happen. And I've got to mark these down somewhere to remind me that those ships have fired their port broadside. I'll just make a list of all the ships and what broadside they've fired. Well, I think that's enough firing for now. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to take my turn here. 5. I don't want to move as far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This command's moved. That's a tricky thing. You have to have some way of remembering which of your commands have moved. There really isn't something in the counter mix to help you remind you of that. When you start seeing these markers, that indicates something, but that could be defensive fire, so it's not really an absolute certitude. Now we go back to the Brits, and they must move here. Slide this forward. That often can be your indication. And we'll just move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The terrain here means nothing in this scenario. This guy's going to want to side slip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's so that I can define the command a little bit more easily. This is within 4 hexes of another ship at this point, so I don't have to just use Bing's radius here. Now the French are going to have 2 squadrons that they can move. I'm just going to move forward, I think. 1, 2, 3. This is kind of dangerous. Four, 5. I'm going to side slip there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You might ask why I'm doing that side slip rather than trying to match these guys' move. I want to keep a certain distinction. Oh, that was another thing. You can remove these command decision markers or command delineation markers because that helps you define that there isn't a command there anymore. Anyway, the reason that I'm doing this is I want a kind of a double line because I think the Brits are turning into me no matter what. And I feel like that's got more defensive capability as much as I can build that up. I'm willing to close a little bit, but not tremendously. And let's do the last. Okay, now the rest of the turn. We check any ship fires, drifting, striking, sinking, remove broadside markers, and then victory determination. That is the end of the first turn at this point. I'm going to leave these markers so that I can write down that they've done their first fire from those sides. But otherwise, I'm loading this one up. I know it's kind of not a terribly long video, but it shows that first turn. It shows firing. It shows a little bit of the movement. It's not showing any of the real kind of detailed levels of this game where, you know, ships are wearing and tacking and stuff in order to maneuver in the way that they do in Fighting Sail, so that I can compare that to this. Because honestly, this one does a much better job, I think, of accurately handling the movement and firing and everything, really. It's at a level of detail that feels as complex as I expect that Wooden Ships and Iron Men is, in a lot of ways. It may not worry too much about, hey, how fast does a ship sail compared to another, but in almost every other aspect, it seems to be a fairly detailed representation. And that's not necessarily what I thought I was getting with a fleet game. It ends up taking a decent amount of time to handle and cover all the effects here, and you have to look up a lot, which isn't a big deal, but there's a lot you have to look up and get used to start to maneuver your ships well. It's not that I dislike this game. It's just that I don't think that it particularly does the fleet level as well as I think Fighting Sail does. But maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe I'll start to really enjoy this over the course of playing it. All right, let's send this one up.